everyone, it's DiabeticDanica. Welcome back to my channel. I got COVID. So I feel like the pandemic full on started in March 2020. That's when kind of everything started to shut down. And I got COVID in January of 2022. So props to me, right? I felt pretty accomplished that I made it that long without testing positive. I mean, I guess it's possible I had it before because I've been getting sick a lot the past year, but I get tested when I get sick and so far they've all been negative, but this time it was positive. So I have type 1 diabetes, so I figured I would just go ahead and make a video about getting COVID with type 1 diabetes. It's likely that I had the Omicron variant of COVID just because the majority of cases right now are Omicron and I didn't lose my taste or smell, and so I'm kind of just assuming that's what I had. So I don't know exactly how I got it, right? It's a pandemic, you could get it a variety of places, but I had just flown a week before. My boyfriend moved a couple states away, and so I flew to visit him for New Year's and got sick almost a week after I got back. So I feel like that's probably the most likely just because being in airports and airplanes, and even though you're wearing a mask, there's just a lot of germs going on. But also multiple people at work got COVID. 3 other of my family members got COVID all around the same time. So it's hard to know chicken versus egg, who started it, who got it, but we got it. So I went to work on a Tuesday and I woke up with a sore throat. However, I have had a sore throat off and on for months now. I've had a cough off and on for months now. Like I said, I've been sick off and on kind of just a lot this winter. And I get tested and it's negative, and so I just figured, oh, my sore throat's kind of creeping back in like it does. So I still went to work because I felt good otherwise, and like I've said, it's been off and on forever. And I was doing pretty good throughout the day. Towards the end of my work day, I started to feel a little more off. But I had just run out of non-diabetes medication, a different medication that I take, and I didn't fill it fast enough, and so I had a period of time where I wasn't taking it, and I was looking up symptoms of being off this med and going back going back on it, and they were similar to what I was experiencing, like a headache, tired, I think even sore throat was on there, so I just kind of assumed that's what it was. I was like, oh, Danica, you waited too long, go get your medication, that kind of thing. And then that night, after I got home and everything, I was feeling really bad, tired, but I just attributed it to likely being this medication issue. And so I had refilled my medications and everything, and then I went to bed at 7 o'clock. And I told my boyfriend on the phone, I was like, I am gonna go take a nap. And I took a nap until 10 o'clock, and then I got up, got ready, and went back to bed. And I woke up around, I think it was 3 a.m. and I was just sweating. I was sweating so much, but I was also freezing. I had a lot of blankets on me, and you're at that point where you're sweating, which is cooling you down, but I'm also really wanting the blankets on because it's cooling me down too much. I'm freezing, and it's causing me to sweat more because I'm piling more blankets on me, and I had a heated blanket and everything. And when I checked my temperature, after being under all those blankets and everything, it was 101.7, and I was like, woo, that is high. And so at that point I was like, I have a fever, I'm not gonna go to work this next day. And then I started vomiting, and nothing was really coming up, but I was definitely nauseous, having the action of vomiting, but very little was coming up, even though I had eaten and everything. And then once I was out of the blankets for a while, I was like, okay, I'll recheck my temperature now that I don't have a heated blanket contributing to me and other blankets. And it was 100.4, I think, or 100.3. So still a fever. And so I think I waited till when my alarm was kind of going off, kind of the morning time, to text work and tell them I was going to come in. I went and got tested for COVID. And we just have a local lab where you can, without an appointment, go in, get tested, and then they just call you or text you or email you with the results. I asked for a text message, and I actually got the results that same day. And like I said, I've been tested many times at this point, always negative. And so when I got the text message, I put in my birthday, it popped up and it said, positive detected, in parentheses, detected. It was kind of shocking, just because I was so used to seeing these results and seeing them be negative, that to see it come back positive was kind of just like, oh my gosh. So I was pretty shocked. And so I let people know, obviously, that I had been in contact with, I let work know, all that kind of stuff. And I just spent the next like 8 days at home. They had recently changed the quarantine rules to be 5 days instead of 10, but then if you're still having bad symptoms or you still have a fever, or my work said if you still had a productive cough to still continue to quarantine. So that's why it was more than 5 days, but less than 10 for me. And I had a lot of symptoms. I was super tired. I definitely had the body aches and muscle aches. I had a headache, I had congestion, kind of runny nose, cough, sore throat, fever, vomiting, I believe diarrhea, nausea. That might have covered it all. I think that might have been it. But I had a lot of symptoms. I did not lose my taste or smell, but I feel like I had the majority of the other normal symptoms, the non-emergent symptoms. So when people would ask how I was doing, I was kind of like, well, I'm definitely sick, but nothing's emergent. Like nothing's causing me to have to go to the ER. I don't have trouble breathing. I don't have a low oxygen saturation. I don't have chest pain. Like nothing else was going on. I definitely would get a little bit winded quicker. Like when I was up trying to do stuff, I would get a little out of breath quicker, but not like gasping for air, not like short of breath. But definitely just overall my body was fatigued. So my parents were really sweet. They live here in town and they brought me a bunch of stuff. They brought me Gatorade Zero, and a bunch of vitamins and medication and a little bit of food too. I had just gone grocery shopping, thankfully, so my house was stocked with food without me having to leave. And my dad had COVID a while ago and they had picked up a pulse oximeter. So a pulse ox lets you check your oxygen levels and your heart rate. And just as a nurse, this made me feel so much better because I could really see how I was doing. Like if I was kind of feeling out of breath or just a little bit worried, I could look and see, okay, but my pulse ox is fine. Like right now I'm 96% oxygen with a 78 heart rate. And that's pretty normal for me. When I was sick though, my pulse was like 115 usually, and my oxygen would just vary. I think the lowest I saw it get was like 92. Less than 90 would have been concerning. But yeah, that made me feel a lot better to kind of know where my oxygen was at, to know if I needed to go to the hospital if it like started to get really low. I also have a thermometer that's just the no-touch forehead one, which I really appreciated having. I think the battery might be dead on it now because I've used it so much. But that was really helpful too, to keep an eye on my temperature. I did have a fever kind of off and on, never as high as the 101.7 though. It was like 99, 100, like kind of in there usually. And then another thing that was my best friend was this cup. I would fill it with ice and water, have a straw in here, and just be drinking throughout the day. I also definitely recommend, I thought it was really helpful to have Gatorade Zero so that you're not raising your blood sugar, but you're getting hydration. I also, when I'm sick, try to get like Diet Sprite or Diet 7-Up, and also regular Sprite and regular 7-Up typically, or like a regular Gatorade option just in case I started having lows or anything like that. But surprisingly, I didn't have any low blood sugars, even though I was vomiting. Like I said, the vomiting wasn't really food coming up. It was just like very minimal, like almost nothing. And so let's get into the blood sugars now that we're 10 minutes into this video. So blood sugar wise, usually when I'm sick, I tend to run higher with my blood sugars. In the past, I have had instances where if I'm constantly vomiting and not eating anything, I have gone low. But this time it was just, if I wasn't eating anything, pretty consistent, honestly. And then I would just, so I have a Tandem insulin pump with Control IQ. It uses the Dexcom readings to adjust my basal for me. And then if I would just see that it was getting up toward the high line, which for me is like 170, I would just give a correction dose, but I was doubling it. So I would correct through my pump. It would usually recommend no correction because typically the pump is already adjusting the basal and it's not usually trying to correct you a large amount, but I would just take the actual correction that it wanted to give me outside of basal IQ. And for me, this is just my numbers. I doubled it and then gave it, and then I just watched the blood sugars. And so if it started to creep up, I would give that extra dose. That really helped. And then when I did start getting to the point where I felt well enough to eat, I was dosing for my carbs and I was just spiking. Like my Dexcom numbers were spiking. I was going super high. I would come back down, but they would spike very high. And so I realized, okay, I need to start increasing my food boluses as well. So what I would do is I would type in the carbs, and whatever it told me, I would do 1.5 times that. And that worked really well for me actually, and it helped keep things down. So I just increased my insulin a lot, drank a lot of water. I wasn't as diligent at checking ketones, I feel like, as I could have been. I did check them and they were there, and so I just focused on hydration and taking my insulin and, you know, really monitoring my vomiting symptoms to figure out if I needed to go to the ER. But I had a video visit with my doctor and she prescribed me some Zofran for the nausea vomiting to kind of help stop that so that I could stay hydrated. And after that, I started to slowly start to get better, and I went to work on the Thursday after, I guess 2 Thursdays after I got sick. I got sick on a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and then I went back to work the next Thursday. So 8 days, 6 days off of work, 2 weekend days sick, and then I was good. I still had a little bit of a productive cough, but my coughs tend to last for a super long time. And like I said, I had a cough for months off and on. So I had talked to my occupational health and my manager and figured out when it was appropriate for me to come back to work. And then for the rest of the time, like 10 full days, you're supposed to mask. So like I went back after I was sick for 8 days. So for 2 more days, I wore a mask around everybody to kind of minimize the chance of spreading anything that might be around. Also, it was really sweet. My boyfriend from states away sent me some groceries to my front door, like Gatorades, and I was craving strawberries and Nutella. I love that so much, and he sent that, and I didn't even tell him that I was craving that, and mac and cheese and just different things to keep me fed and hydrated. My friend Brianna, also from states away, she sent me a bunch of snacks in a box too, and so it was really sweet. My family was checking in on me a lot. Like I said, there was 3 other family members that also had COVID at the same time. So yeah, everything was fine. Thankfully, I think even though I definitely was sick, I don't know if I would call it mild, but it wasn't emergent. That's the best way I can describe it, how I keep saying, like, I was definitely like sick, like very sick, but nothing was emergent, nothing was life-threatening. Like I never felt like scared for my life I had a normal thinking ahead, like make sure you're paying attention to your symptoms, go to the hospital if you need to, but at no point did I need to. And so I was very thankful that it was able to be managed at home and everything went fine. Ampers, my dog, was with me the whole time cuddling. She did a pretty good job considering that we couldn't go on our normal walks or anything. And yeah, I really appreciate all the support from my friends and family and from everybody online that was telling me they were thinking about me or praying for me to get better. That was all super helpful. So yeah, had COVID with type 1 diabetes. For me, it went well. Obviously, everyone is different. So this is just what I did and how I took care of myself. But I feel like everyone who gets COVID, it's kind of different too. Like my brother and his wife who had COVID at the same time as me did lose their taste and smell, and they didn't have the like nausea, vomiting, and fever, whereas Cody was sick at the same time, my boyfriend, and he was vomiting way more than me. He had a fever way more than me, and he also had the flu at the same time. So it's just crazy. It can really vary from person to person. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment down below if you've had COVID and diabetes, and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.